All right, since it's been a little while since we were together, and since we have unique patterns of attendance, I think I'm just going to go over what we've done and sort of put us in context again. We're doing the book of Micah because Micah, of course, is the source for it's the mine from which all social justice movements get 6-8, which they quote and make their theme verse. And so our desire this year has been to put that into some kind of context and see where it comes from. Because of course there's more about justice and concern for the person around me in the book of Micah than just 6-8. There's a much bigger situation. So in the past several times, we've looked at the first half of the book, basically. We've gotten up through 4-8 last time. We saw in chapters 1 and 2 a basic setup in which a doom section, proclamation of judgment coming for sin, all is conceived in terms of place, spatially, locationally. Everything flies apart because of our sin. And of course, what were the sins that were pointed out in chapter 2? They're sins with place, with land. People are defrauding. If you've got power and you've got wealth and you can bribe the courts, you're getting somebody who's small and can't fight back and getting their few acres of land that they basically just grow enough crops to feed the family on. And you defraud them of their land. You take the land so you own it and then you charge them rent. And this is going on all over Judah in the 8th century at this point. And as the landowners continue to increase their holdings and their wealth, they're getting bigger and bigger, and all the people are basically reduced to serfdom and don't have much recourse because, of course, if they take it to court, the judge is in cahoots with the people who already have the money anyway. So this is stacked. Micah confronts this so that we started 1 with this image of God coming down from heaven. He leaves his heavenly temple and he steps down onto the earth. The mountains melt and he comes to the capitals of the north, Samaria, and of the south, Jerusalem, and they're condemned for their idolatry. They've sold their hearts elsewhere and aren't worshiping God anymore. So God says it'll all be leveled. Then we have this wonderful pun poem at the end of chapter 1 where Micah laments. It's like he's at a funeral and he's mourning for all that's going to happen to all the little towns out in the country because of the sin of the capital that's going to bring reprisal and dealing with judgment eventually from the Assyrians in 701 when they'll invade. Chapter 2, he confronts the issues with the land. He makes it very clear what's going on. You have this very wealthy class that are getting wealthier and wealthier. They continue to feather their nest at the expense of the little people. So that everything up till now has said judgment's coming. It's going to be because of what you're doing with your properties and your land, and what will come will wreck your whole geography, all the topography, everything about your place. I mean, God steps down, the mountains melt. He laments for all these little towns. So it's this descending focus. We started in heaven and we end up with our gaze on the people and what they're doing with their land, their space, and then we transition to 2:12 and 13 where all of a sudden there's this oracle of hope, salvation, and God says, I'm going to regather you all together. In other words, it looks beyond the exile, which 2 had told us was coming. You're all going to be split from your land. You're going to lose that which you have so craved, territory and wealth taken from you. You'll be sent off as exiles. But after that, when you guys aren't an issue anymore, I'll still preserve a remnant of my people, and I'm not done with them. I'll gather them back together. I'll lead them home. So God says, because of your sins with your land, I'm going to bust you out of your land, and everything spatial, topographical, geographical flies apart in the judgment. And then in 2:12 and 13, God says, and I will put your surroundings back together. But it's going to be down the road. I'm not done with you guys. Salvation will come.
Chapter 3, we had a very different structure. You have 3 oracles, each about the leadership. The first oracle is about the civil leaders, the people who are all together in bed, cheating all the little people. Then you have the spiritual leaders, and then the third oracle in the end of 3 is all the leadership, spiritual, political, judicial, everybody, confronting them for what they're doing, and saying at the end, 3:12, Jerusalem is going to be leveled. Your capital city that you're so proud and secure in is going to be destroyed. Chapter 4, 1-8, responded to that, you remember. In 4, 1-8, God says the mountain of the Lord's temple is going to be raised up and it's going to be outstanding above all the other mountains, all the other hills. It's going to be where I'll come and I will reign. And the picture is of 2 groups of people in the future who will come to the Lord as king there. One group will be the nations. So you have a very typical prophet picture there of all the nations coming to worship God. You know, these are Jews in the Old Testament, but the prophets got the missional God that we had, and again they give this picture that in the distant future, God's going to make a people with Gentiles too. They're going to come in. So even though all the culture around them is basically saying, hey, it's all about us, we're God's people and we're privileged and God should destroy everybody else, the prophets weren't. The prophets kept saying God's going to work this way. So there's the nations coming, and then another remnant. He regathers a remnant at the end of 2. 4, 1-8, there is another remnant. He says they're lame, they're crippled, they have been brutalized. I'll make the lame a remnant, those driven away a strong nation. The Lord will rule over them in Mount Zion from that day and forever. So he says, I'm going to rule over them and on into the future. So of course, what's been going on? Chapter 3 was the doom section, the judgment section, in which he confronted the leadership. What's the problem? They're corrupt bums. So what do you do if you have a group of corrupt bums who are running things in a society? You throw them out. You can't vote them out, though. This is the ancient world. So what God does is the responsive promise in the section of hope, 4, 1-8, is that I will replace them. And instead of these horrible people who are cheating the lower classes as rapidly as possible, God says, in the end, I'm going to end up on Mount Zion as king. The nations will acknowledge me, and the remnant, so we've got this remnant who survive again. They will come and acknowledge me also. So, Micah 1:1 to 4:8, we're ready for a new section. So, as you look at 4:9, what do you notice right away?
Fantastic, that?
Not yet. What do you notice? Is there a transition going on? How do you know this is a different section? What's been the tone in 4:1-8? It's been hope, salvation. Now in 4:9, what does it sound like?
They're having problems.
It's really negative again. Okay, so we're going back to doom, the proclamation of judgment. We're going back again. So we've gone doom, hope, doom, hope. Here we have doom again. So you know we're transitioning into a new section. And the focus is going to shift, but you'll see how it shifts in just a moment. This one sounds very different from the preceding, and in many respects is the hardest portion of the book to read. So our greatest challenge is tonight. A good part of the issue is that whereas in 1 and 2 we had very clearly demarked sections of doom and hope, of judgment and salvation, in 4:9 to 5:15 it seems to get all intermixed, and it's way harder at first to follow or tell where it's going. But there's a hint I'm going to give you right now. There is an answer, and when you see the structure, you'll start to understand what's happening. But it's one of those things that's really easy in my devotions to pass over and not catch. It's subtle. It would have made more sense to an ancient Hebrew,
Of course, they're the first ones who received this, so we should expect that it would make more sense to them. But we need to get in on that because we want to hear what God's saying through this. So, I have a discussion session exercise for you that I'd like you to perform here. I have a set of, this is really easy, but I think you need to do this in groups of 2 or whatever.
That works out, doesn't
Do this with each other and determine one simple thing. As you look at these passages, tell me, is this positive or is this negative? Segment by segment as you move through the passage. Make sure everybody has one. You can let Lisa have one.
Really? Even I get one.